So this video is for integrated 2. This is going to be on factoring quadratics of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And we're going to use a method called box to diamond. Box to diamond. Now, what we want to do is we want to look at, I will put up the worksheet from the other day that I had asked us to multiply out binomials and see if we saw a pattern. So let me get that one out for us. So what you guys were to look at is the diagonals and see if you see any patterns with them. So if I look at this diagonal here, which has a 9n and a 2n, what relationship does it have with this one, which is a 3n squared and a 6? We want to look here at this 2n squared and 2, and this negative 2n and negative 2n. Okay, what do they have in common? And same with all of these, 4x squared and a negative 9, and a negative 6x and a positive 6x. What do they have in common? And let's look at one more here. What does an r squared times a negative 3 and a negative 3r times r, a negative 3r and r have in common? So I kind of was giving it away with when I said times, because what you'll notice is if I multiply the diagonals, they're going to be the same. So when I multiply 9n times 2n, I get an 18n squared. And if I multiply 3n squared times 6n, I also get an 18n squared. Over on problem 2, the diagonal, this one multiplies to a positive 4n squared. This one multiplies to a positive 4n squared. Here, if I multiply a negative 6x and a 6x, I get a negative 36x squared. Here, if I multiply 4x squared and a negative 9, I get a negative 36x squared. So all of these diagonals are going to multiply to the same thing. So this is going to be to a negative 3r squared. This also multiplies to a negative 3r squared. So when I am looking at this, okay, and I am looking at this 2n squared times 3, which is a 6n squared. Hold on a second. What did I do? This should have been a 4. I apologize. That was a 4n squared. 4n squared times 3, that's going to be a 12n squared. This diagonal also multiplies to a 12n squared, but it has to also add to this 8n. Okay. If I'm looking at the one above that, they multiplied to a negative 36. But the negative 6x and the positive 6x right here, not only does it have to multiply to a negative 36, but it has to add to 0x. I had no x. On number 1, this 9n and 2n multiplied to an 11n, to an 18n squared, but it has to add to that 11n. That's how all of these are going to be. So that's how we're going to be doing these problems. So the title of this set of notes is Factoring Quadratics, ax squared plus bx plus c. And this is going to be box to diamond. So just a little reminder. If we have an example where it is an x squared, not a number in front or a coefficient in front, let's say it's x squared minus 8x plus 12, and we're factoring it. This I can do just a straight diamond, because really I just need to figure out what multiplies to 12, which is the constant, and what adds to the negative 8, which is the x. So, and the reason is if I was to multiply out, what's going to happen is we had an x squared, we have a 12. And when we are doing this and we're trying to figure out what multiplies to 12 and adds to negative 8, that's going to be a negative 6 and a negative 2. I would have had a negative 6x and a negative 2x, because this would have been an x minus 6. This would have been an x minus 2. And those would have been our factors, okay? X minus 6, x minus 2. So when we're doing one with just an x squared, no number in front, okay, we take our constant. Whoops, didn't mean to scribble on it. We take our constant. We want to figure out what multiplies to it. And then we take our x, which is a negative 8. We want to figure out what adds to it. Okay. And then our answer, our factors would have been x minus 6, x minus 2. Now, we're going to be doing it using a different method where we're going to do a box to diamond. Okay. Because we're going to have numbers in front. So what's going to happen is, let's say I have, for example, 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. So this one I can do a straight diamond. Okay, straight diamond. This one I'm going to do a box to diamond. Box to diamond. And so I am going to do a box. And I am going to put the 2x squared and the 3 like that. And where am I getting the 2x squared? I'm getting the 2x squared from here. That goes here. I am getting the positive 3 from here. That goes there. So it's the coefficient, the Lie term with the 2x squared, and then the coefficient, the constant with the 3. And then what's going to happen is, we saw that every time we multiply these, whatever this multiplied to, which is a 6x squared, this diagonal also multiplied to, but it had to add to the 5x. So I am going to try to figure out what multiplies to a 2x squared times 3, 6x squared, and adds to the 5x. And I'm going to put the x squared in the x. For the one that I just did in red, this one over here, I don't put the x squared in the x, because whatever my sides are going to be, that's going to be going with my x in my parentheses. These ones I'm going to stick back into the box. So what multiplies to a 6x squared and adds to a 5x? A 3x and a 2x. So I'm going to put a 3x and a 2x. It doesn't matter which one goes where. And then what I want to focus on is, I want to focus on what multiplies to get us the 2x squared. Now that's going to be a 2x and an x. Now, if I put the 2x here, will it multiply and give me a 3x? Not nicely. So I don't want that. So I'm going to put the 2x here, because the 2x will multiply nicely and get me the 2x. So 2x there, x here. X times what gets me a 3x? Well, x times 3. And then 2x times what gets me a 2x? And that's going to be a plus 1. So my factors are going to be 2x plus 3, x plus 1. Okay, so let's try another one. So let's say, for example, I have a 4y squared plus 4y minus 15. Okay. So I'm going to do a box to diamond. I'm going to put my 4y squared here and my negative 15 here. Okay. Again, the 4y squared was my lead, and the minus 15 was my constant. Okay. And then I am going to go, okay, what do these multiply to? Well, it multiplies to a negative 60y squared, and it has to add to that 4y. Okay, those two have to add to the 4y. So when I'm doing this, I'm trying to think of what multiplies to negative 60 and adds to a positive 4. So if I'm making a list of things, 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10. And as I'm going through 6 and 10, that's going to be the one I want. So I'm going to go a negative 10y, sorry, a positive 10y, because it's a positive 4 I need, and a negative 6y. Doesn't matter which one I put where, 10y in one, negative 6y in the other. Now, when I'm focusing on this 4y squared, I can either have a 4y times y or a 2y times 2y. Those are going to be my two choices. Now, looking at the 10, 4 doesn't go into 10 and 4 doesn't go into 6. So I'm not going to have the 4y and y. So I'm going to have a 2y and a 2y. 2y times a positive 5 will get the 10y. 2y times a negative 3 will get the negative 6y. And so my factors are going to be 2y minus 3 and 2y plus 5. Those are our answers. Okay, and let me do one more. So let's say I have an 8y squared plus 14y minus 15. Okay. And I'm going to actually move this down here. Let me move it so I have more space. I'm going to move it down here. Okay, so I'm going to do my box. It's a diamond. And I am going to be looking at my 8y squared. Okay, so I mean, sorry, 8x squared. I'm putting an x here. I don't know why I changed the variables. Both of these are going to be x's. And then I'm going to put the minus 15 here. Okay. And when I multiply those together, I am going to get up at the top. So 15 and 8, that's going to be 0, 4. So I'm going to get a negative 120 x squared. And it has to add to that 14. Okay, so add to a 14x. Now this is a negative 120, so I'm kind of really having a difference of 14. So 1 and 120, 2 and 60, 3 and 40, 4 and 30, trying to get a difference of 16, 5 and let's see, 5 is going to go into it. 24 times. 6 is going to go into it 20 times. And that is going to be a difference of 14. So I'm going to have a 20x and a negative 6x. So a 20x and a negative 6x. Now, when I'm trying to find the outside, to get an 8x squared, it could be an 8 and a 1 or a 2 and a 4. Looking at the 6 and the 20, 8 is not going to work for either of those. So it has to be the 2 and the 4. 4 is not going to help with the 6. So my 4x is going to go here and get the 20. And my 2x is going to go here and get the negative 6x. And so now 2x multiplies with what to get a negative 6x? That's going to be a negative 3. And 4x multiplies with what to get a 20, and that's going to be a positive 5. And so my factors are going to be 2x plus 5 times the quantity 4x minus 3. And that is going to be my answer. And that is going to be the end of this video.